Jimmy T. Martin lost his first wife, Linmarie, to cancer. She was only 29 when she died, leaving him with a dream of a business called Brrrn. She said it was the proudest thing that he created that she wouldn't live to see. And with the help of his family, his friends, therapy, and his wry sense of humor, Jimmy was slowly able to rebuild a life for himself, and with his business partner, Johnny, find a way to bring Brrrn to life, not once, but twice. This story does have a happy ending. He finds a new love who would eventually become his wife. He builds a transforming business, and there is even a son. But there is also the wisdom of experience and loss that filters through our talk that you cannot help but see, hear, and feel. Jimmy leaves us with compelling questions in our conversation. He asks, what are the prompts in your life that are calling you to take action, to do something different, to make a different choice, to choose life? What actions are the prompts in your life calling you to take? Hello and welcome to At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a multimedia platform that brings together people from a diverse background of lives, careers, and experiences who all share one thing in common. They have stepped fully into the transformative power of finding and raising their voices to make an impact on the world we live in today. At the Podium holds a space for everyone to share their stories, to be heard, and to bring us inspiration. Today, I'm thrilled to share the podium with Jimmy T. Martin. Jimmy T. Martin is a multi-hyphenate based in New York City. He's been featured on The Today Show, Good Morning America, Live with Kelly and Ryan, Bloomberg TV Radio, and many others for his innovations in the fitness industry as the co-founder of Brrrn, the globally recognized fitness brand that pioneered the world's first cool temperature fitness experience and the award-winning Brrrn Slide Board. He is responsible for the development and production of Brrrn's on-demand fitness program, oversees all branding and marketing initiatives, and has co-authored the fitness industry's first accredited slide board training for fitness and health professionals. His past experiences include working in the advertising industry as a senior copywriter and producer, penning popular campaigns for Seagram's Gin and Tribini. He is also a SAG-AFTRA performer, having worked in film and television as an executive producer for the Stage Network, as a stuntman for the film Urge, and as a background performer and apprentice to the head writer of Saturday Night Live. He is a 2011 graduate of the Upright Citizens Brigade's distinguished improv and sketch comedy program in New York City, and holds a BA in interpersonal and organizational communication and a minor in business from George Mason University. At George Mason, he also served as a student athlete on their men's wrestling team from 2003 to 2007. Okay, Jimmy, welcome to At the Podium.
Oh, Patrick, thank you for having me. At the very end of this podcast, I'm going to ask you to record my voicemails, because if people hear you say he's just not available, they'll understand. Beautiful voice. You have everything for a podcast. So you kind of found your place.
There was a great post you did on Instagram. It was a few years ago. And you're like in your briefs and you're kind of like, you're not posing, or maybe you are posing, but you're like looking down at a phone, I think. And you wrote this really beautiful message about body image and how our bodies change and shift over time. And it resonated for me because so many of us coming out of COVID have gained weight. I've had to deal with our bodies have changed because 2 years, our lives are so different. And I love that you put that out there, but I love that you were like, it isn't all that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for going through and seeing that. Yeah, it was something that was important to me, because working in the health and wellness space, people are always trying to catch up to who they were. And I think that for as much as that's a great goal to have, because it keeps you motivated, can also be pretty destructive. And I know for me personally, having been in better shape in my life, and especially having been in better shape pre-Instagram, where I'm like, oh man, I could have leveraged some of this, youthfulness to my advantage. It comes with it's a fair share of its regrets. But I think, what's beautiful about the body that you have is being able to celebrate it and to meet it where it's at and find new goals, that really do speak to you. And, that's the destructive part of social media, where we want to present ourselves in the best light, or at least the version of ourselves that we think people want to see.
Yeah.
And I wanted to have like this juxtaposition of a photo that one would think was celebrating the former of like, look at me, but it was kind of like I wanted to have a look within me post and comment on the, how we should be looking elsewhere when it comes to how we not only cast ourselves out to others, but how we show up for ourselves and reevaluate our values of like what's really important to us. And for me now, it's being an example for myself first, and living up to what I deem is good every single day.
I was doing some more research on you, and there were two quotes that you had in an article that you did with Medium. You said two things which are related to what we were just talking about. You said, my career is an amalgamation of the many triumphs and tribulations in my life, forged together by passion, persistence, and a shit ton of luck. And then you said, I faced loss in many forms throughout my life as an athlete and also as a widower. And I can say without question that learning how to navigate through those moments is absolutely necessary for personal and professional growth. That kind of took my breath away, knowing your story and knowing what we're going to talk about today, that you were able to have such perspective on it, of what your life has sort of unfolded to be today.
You really find out who you are by the obstacles that you're facing. We live in a world where things are a lot easier for us, but I've never, from athletics to the things I experienced through my, as you're referencing the loss of my wife, there was always something on the other side of pain that was like a prompt, an inciting incident for me to grow. And when it comes to the things that you do in your life professionally, challenges are the spark. They're the kerosene for the fire. And every fire needs wind to increase the flame. And I think that me having grown up facing challenges head on prepared me to understand how to navigate what my next steps were going to be when the worst thing in my life imaginable happened. And at that moment, having to decide whether I was going to be consumed by it or whether I was going to be better for it. It's just so wild to think while you're caught up in the moment of trying to come up and trying to make change as either an entrepreneur or what have you, like taking a step back and looking in the rear view and appreciating for better or for worse the miles that you've logged in your life to get to where you're at. I think we need to do that more, because I think that expressing gratitude for the pain and for the pleasure will allow us to show up for ourselves and for other people in better ways.
That's what's so amazing about your story, is that for many people, and you've had really sort of major inflection points in your life and in your career, and we're going to talk about Brrrn in just a minute, but you've always been able to maintain, at least publicly, you've been able to maintain the spirit of, we can get through this. And a spirit of joy, I would say, in the process that comes through, that many people sometimes lose when they're forced by life and circumstances to make changes that they don't want to make sometimes.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's tough to be optimistic when you're in an environment that's so competitive, whether it be athletics or like living in New York City to, turn a dream into a reality. And I think that how you show up to those things is tremendously influenced by the people that you keep around you. And having been in team-based sports where I was required to not only be a good teammate, but to know that my actions would ultimately influence the people around me, having that duality has allowed me to show up to, I guess, again, before challenges, knowing that, okay, did I do the work going in to be the best version of myself? and to be able to influence change in a positive way for the mission that I'm serving. I also attribute the way that I've showed up to things by my willingness to just, to be involved in things to build my life resume. I know we joked before the podcast about the many weird jobs that I had when I first moved to New York. So, I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania in like the Scranton Wilkes-Barre area of PA. People know Scranton from Joe Biden and from the show The Office. Growing up in a small town where you really know everybody, and having had in such an incredible support system. My mom's an entrepreneur. She's a small town hairdresser. My dad worked at a hospital and as a respiratory therapist and cardiovascular sonographer, and had a job that allowed him to be a coach, which he was a coach for all my sports. So, hashtag daddy issues, coach's son syndrome.
Especially wrestling. That is
not. Oh, my God. Yeah.
That's special.
The most intense sport to have your dad as a coach. But got to experience a sense of celebrity as an athlete in this small town, a very like Friday Night Lights feel. So going how that informed the responsibility of being a face of a business alongside, and working with a business partner to share a collective vision to influence change for the better in a way that had never been done before in the industry that we are in. And then getting a scholarship to be a student athlete 4 hours away from home, and having to understand what my identity was separate to the identity that I built or that was given to me in my small town, and experience change on that level. And then moving to New York to pursue a career that had nothing really to do with the degree that I got at school, and doing odd jobs to be in that industry, like being a Starbucks barista and being a personal trainer to very influential decision makers in multiple industries. And as we joked before, being a nude art model, which I would love to dive into, which really made things awkward during family holidays. But all those things, all those
showing pictures of all of that from your work.
They're all on the internet. That's which is why probably it would be hard for me to be in politics. Which, by the way, if I did go into politics, the one thing that I would do is I would actually create a slam commercial for myself. My commercial would be the one that you would expect the opposition to create for you. And so I would love to kind of flip the script where it said "paid for by Jimmy T. Martin," and they were like, "What the heck? Why is he?" It's like, you can't, if I'm joking about me, there's no way you can out joke me about me, but yeah, I mean, all those things, going back to the initial quote about an amalgamation of triumphs, tribulations, and luck. I knew that being involved in a bunch of different things would give you a way to distill what truly you're passionate about and how to make that a profession. And everybody around me went to college, they got a job in their field. They have been in it for a decade plus. They've had salaries and been able to save. And I've always been scraping to get by. And it really took a lot out of me thinking oh man, am I really saving for a future? Is this the right path for me? But then all these things happen as a result of you showing up and living your truth and trying to navigate what your story is. And at least with Brrrn, everything that I had done in the arts and what I had experienced in my life really did cultivate this path that I'm on now. And I've been able to gain so much perspective in the 38 years that I've been here on this earth, and been able to understand what's really important to me now, and the mission that I want to serve to help better the lives of the people around me.
So can you explain to us what Brrrn is? And it's such a huge part of your life, and how you found Brrrn, how you found that amazing.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. So in 2013, as I was juggling many, many part-time jobs to equal one job, I was working as a personal trainer at a large chain fitness studio. And one of my clients was a woman that had moved from Boston. She was a professor at Harvard. She was a psychiatrist that was an adjunct professor. She moved to the city, started her own practice. And in the middle of the summer, the air conditioning wasn't working as it does when you need it the most. It's no, sorry, we're going to just be 1,000 degrees in this place.
Oh.
and which you know very well. You know heat better than anybody. But she was just like, she's like, I can't work out. She just, and rightfully so. It was very hot. Like your body, when it's super hot, it just wants to like be still. And we just got into the conversation about temperature and performance. And she was talking about how during the fall, winter months, she like felt her best. She was her thinnest, and she performed the best as an athlete because she was a runner. And that like was interesting to me because, with wrestling, if you know about wrestling, the whole point is to like mentally put yourself through, through suffering so you can show up for your match and just be a wild man or wild woman. So the relationship between temperature and performance like intrigued me because I was thinking, well, she's saying all these great things about cold, about cooler temperatures, like fall-ish temperatures between 41 degrees Fahrenheit and 64 degrees Fahrenheit. And I thought, well, if that's true, if it's more of an ally, not an enemy, then why aren't more fitness studios embracing the other side of the spectrum of temperature with regard to better performance and calorie expenditure? So the pun master in me, which I attribute that to, having worked in advertising, where dad jokes are actually cool when you read them, not when you say them out loud. I came up with the name Brrrn, BRRRN, to talk about this idea that I had of engineering a cool temperature fitness studio that allowed you to burn more calories, but more importantly, to optimize your performance. And it was just an idea. Like I was thinking even of having it as like a sketch or something, like writing it as a sketch because it was so wild, right? But then like I started to dive deeper into it and I was trying to see if there was anything like that. And there was nothing like that in the industry. And I thought, wow, they teach you in comedy, follow the unusual thing and heighten it. And that was truly an unusual thing. And talking about prompts, like inciting incidents, like months after I thought of this, the woman that I was married to before, Linmarie, she had gotten diagnosed with cancer. And during her battle with that disease, which unfortunately took her life 7 months later, she had said to me, like the last week that she was alive in hospice, which we went down to her parents' place in Virginia for, she's like, Brrrn is everything that you are. It's a platform for you to express your creativity. It's a platform for you to, to really carry your prowess in fitness that you gain as a college athlete and as a trainer. And more importantly, it's a platform where people can go through something challenging and come out on the other side better. And she said, it's just the proudest thing that I'll never get to see. And then a week later, she passed. And I felt like I had a responsibility in that moment to carry on her legacy through this business. And I just left everything that I was doing in the city. I was working on SNL at that time. I was, a senior level copywriter at this ad agency. I had celebrity clients as a trainer, and I just like left everything to make this thing happen. And I'm happy that I followed my gut to do it. It turned out to be a pretty phenomenal thing that I get to enjoy today.
How were you able to, because you were both young, she was young when she
29. Died. Yeah, she passed at 29. Mm-hmm.
How were you able to pick up the pieces and funnel that energy, that grief, that loss into Brrrn?
Like looking back, I just felt like I was on autopilot. I definitely attribute, finding a sense of normalcy to the community that I surrounded myself with, my friends, my family. I moved back home for a few months because I was really worried that I was going to hurt myself, knowing that this pain was just too much to bear, thinking about, oh my God, like the person I was living my life for is not here anymore. Why even live? I lost my faith. I fell out of my relationship with my in-laws because they were in such pain. They needed to justify it somehow. But, I knew that like this all can't be for naught. Like the life can't just end here when the hardest thing happens to you. So how am I going to show up to this incredible, this like indescribable challenge, this indescribable moment in my life? How am I going to be better for it? How am I going to use this as leverage to be a better me after all that I went through? So going to therapy, being alongside other people in bereavement that lost someone in their life, which, what's interesting, I went to it was called Gilda's Club in New York City. It's now renamed, I think, like the Red Door Community. It's interesting when you're talking about people that you've lost. Like, I always try to find the humor in things. It was funny how people were constantly one-upping each other's past loved ones. There, someone would be like, Sandy was, man, she was such a good knitter, and she just would make stuff for everybody. And then someone would be like, Danielle, she like also knitted, but she was such a good dancer. She like would watch the NSYNC, live at Madison Square Garden tape, and just like she'd be so good. You'd be like, Justin Timberlake, who? After you watch her dance, and that person be like, yeah, Dan, God, he was so good at Pogs, and surprisingly, he also knit. Like everybody was just like one up each other. I thought that was so wild. I'm like, we're not trying to compete the memory of the ones that we lost, but like it just like happened, just seeing how that came out. But I'm also a writer, and I would try to put my thoughts out on paper and try to think of, try to show up and get it all out of my head, and just try to show up to every day with, a lot more brain space to face a challenge. But I think overall, I'm it's going to be almost 9 years since she's been gone. And it's just crazy because it feels like yesterday where, died in my arms, and like seeing someone that gave you life every moment. She was this 5'10", like Puerto Rican bombshell. Like, so like she had like tweezers in her pocket because she always did people's eyebrows, men or women. She'd be like, Mira, come here. And she'd like, just like,
get out.
She was so amazing. And me having come to New York to be like a late night comedy writer and performer, she was a star. Like they were like, she's the one that should be, on TV. She was funny and just illuminating. But God, she made me believe in me in moments where I just wanted to quit and just go, oh, what's this all for? And whenever I feel like shit, I just think of her like doing this, like posturing, trying to tell me to keep my chin up and just go, keep moving forward. And God, I'm just so grateful. My son was almost born on her birthday, which would have been crazy. There's just, I know I'm talking all over the place, but I'm just, I am now grateful that I got to live through that, because like nothing scares me anymore. I know that I've been through the worst. Anything else after that is just, it is what it is. And I don't think a lot of people get to have that perspective because they're afraid to lose. They're afraid to they've done all this stuff in their life, professionally speaking, and they feel like a setback will destroy them. But progress isn't linear. And you certainly can't move forward if you don't move through stuff. And the people that I look up to are all people that have faced challenges and had to really show up and put in the work and find a way through all that noise. And I'm just really grateful I doubled down on me. I kept my community tight and been around people that just constantly challenged me to be better. And it's allowed me to show up here with a Peaky Blinders hat and, this microphone, and to sit here and have this opportunity to speak with you.
The timing is so divine in a way, because not soon after she had passed, you met Johnny, who is your partner.
Yeah. The yin to my yang, man.
Then you started this process.
It was such a blessing because I met this guy who was a former public health official, science guy. Cause I knew the heart of what I wanted the business to be. Cause I talked about being a platform that prompted people to go through something that they perceived as a challenge and to come out on the other side better for it. How to substantiate the science, how to talk about it. I didn't know, I'm an advertising guy. I can make you love it, but the emotional side, but how do you justify it on the logical side? And Johnny was that guy. And I sold him on the story because I knew I wanted to do this with somebody. I didn't think it was so much bigger than myself. I was like, how do I start a business where I got to educate people on why they need to warm up to a cool temperature workout? And he got it. He's just like, we got to do studies. We got, got to do this. And so he's the one that prompted us to do a trial in a beer fridge in New York. And the woman that became my wife, it was the one that like filmed us doing this trial in this beer fridge. And, we assigned like liability waivers, and it was just wild. And then we collected all this data, and Johnny helped present it in a very strong argument, and use case. And I told him, I'm like, this pitching process is a lot like what I experienced as an actor auditioning. I'm like, these no's are going to make you better. The no's are going to get you closer to your yes. So like when someone tells you this is crazy, you need to go back to your what you were doing before this moment. Don't be defeated by it. Like it's going to make us stronger and help us distill why us and why now. And no joke, 300 pitches later that we did virtually in person, it was like 300 bad Shark Tank episodes, it led us to our first yes. Yeah. And our first yes was me taking a chance, like almost trying to create like a Mad Men moment where I wrote that this one investor he was going to invest in a fitness concept that was very popular across the country. And I said, Johnny, let me just, I'm going to put this in my back pocket at the very end. And so I took all the logos of competitor companies and put them on one page. And then I left the back of it blank. And I said, like, this is the current roster of businesses that that this business would be competing against. And I like strategically put that business at the very bottom as if it was stacking all on top of, of the one that he was looking at. And I said, if you turn the page over, these are the competitors of the business that we're trying to create. And there was nothing.
Nothing.
And he wrote a check right at that moment for us. And it was wild. But it was like, it's like going back to I had no fear. I was like, let's show up and show that we're confident about this. And then that was pun intended, a snowball effect to get more checks. And we raised like $1.5 million in like that year and a half and opened up what became the world's first and only cool temperature fitness studio in Flatiron, Chelsea, which if anybody knows pre-pandemic they called it like Fitness Alley, the most competitive neighborhood for fitness, where there's like 200 studios within a 1 mile radius. I mean, so many options. But I told him, I'm like, if we are going to be anything, it's because we have surrounded ourselves with the best. And it's going to force us to show up to every day better and not sleep on what the services that we want to provide people. We found our footing, but I was like, hey, I got this. Like, I was like, when I was an athlete, I trained on this thing called a slide board, and it's really fun. It was big in the 90s. It kind of fell off because the quality of the board was really crappy because they were trying to scale at mass market. But I go, use this one as a college athlete. And it was so good because nobody moves in the frontal plane, like the side to side movements, like 99.9% of modern fitness equipment that we use, like bikes and rowing machines and treadmills, they encourage us to move forward and backwards in the sagittal plane. So there's forward and backwards sagittal plane, frontal plane, which is side to side, and then transverse plane, which is just rotational movements across the body. I was like, we can kind of have a cool thing within a cool thing if we have a class based on this. And sure enough, like it was a hit. We added it into circuits. People were asking us how they can get one for home. And we're happy that we did that because it ended up being the thing that the business transitioned into, that literally what we made a lateral move as a company. Oh. And now that's the company.
You know what I love about the story is my grandmother always said before she died that, that you don't get through life without pain and hurt. Mm-hmm. Right? That no one does. Welcome to being a human on the planet today. But it's how you respond to it that really separates the wheat from the chaff, I guess you could say. And then I also think it's the ability to hear no and no and no over and over again and still have enough belief in what you're doing to keep going. And people so often quit right before they're about to get the yes. Mm-hmm. And I love that you and Johnny were able to keep moving through and to really creatively find a way to get this investor to start investing with you. But what I really resonated with in your story was you talked about, as you were moving through this process and getting all these no's, that you had imposter syndrome. And I love that because I've been very fortunate to speak to really successful people on this podcast, and to a person almost. They all talk about having a moment in their life, their career, where they felt like, I would never be part of a club that would have me as a member. Or they felt like, well, I'm here, but I'm not supposed to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just stops so many people.
Mm-hmm.
They buy into that narrative, I guess you could say. But I love that you were able to really move past that. How are you able to actually do that?
I mean, I'm still trying to show up, and hopefully that person doesn't knock on my door and go, okay, time's up. You've been found out. I think what imposter syndrome is just, it's you reflecting upon the fact that you have more to do. You know, because some people see it as like, oh, I don't belong here. Like I'm not, like I'm duping people. For me, it's more of a reflection of, I have so much to learn in this process. I just hope that I'm conveying a sense of authority with what I'm doing, because I don't want to mislead people. And, you know, I've never run a business before, especially a business where people have given me a lot of money to like help them make money. So like as a fiduciary to investors, like I have a responsibility to give them a return on investment. And that's something that Johnny and I had held very close to our chest and didn't forget, because it was just these two guys that love wearing spandex in public, that wanted to like get people to do, you know, a workout in a weird environment. And I knew that us kind of feeling unsettled in our own bodies was going to be a strength, not a weakness, because a lot of the people that were around us in the fitness space, you know, they had like private equity backed or ventured backed businesses. And so they kind of had some financial cushion. Like we were eating what we killed, if you know, for lack of a better term. Like we knew that like, if we want to like swim with the sharks, even though we were a minnow, we had to like think that we were a shark. And it was, thank goodness I have him, because we are truly each other's opposites with how we think about things. And though we have commonalities of being from small towns, Johnny's dad was a soap salesman. Again, my mom was a hairdresser, but we wanted to create the fitness industry, at least boutique fitness industry, as you know very well, is very exclusionary in price, in how people look and feel. And I knew when I walked into some of these studios, like, I'm like, oh, I don't look like that. Going back to that, like Instagram post.
Yeah.
If you didn't have a six pack, I felt like you couldn't go through the door. Like, or if you didn't, you know, have a certain amount of followers, people wouldn't take you seriously. And I'd been through these places that didn't even look you in the eye while you were checking in. And I was like, that's not cool. I want you to feel a warm feeling when you walked through the door and we said hello to you. We looked you in the eye. I wanted that connection to feel familiar. I wanted you to already feel like you knew us in that first impression. That's really what we were trying to do at the studio level, until the world changed and we were forced to rethink who we were, you know, and how we wanted to show up to better people's health.
How did you handle that? I mean, you had like invested so much energy and time in getting the studio up and running. COVID hits, you have to close.
Yeah. Like, sorry. Hey, small business owners, figure it out. You know, that's the one thing that, I mean, it's just crazy to think that we're 3 years out of that moment, but it's still, there's a lot of trauma that still lives today for businesses like, you know, as small as ours, where they just felt abandoned by the cities that they had their business in. And I mean, I've always been taught to be prepared, right? I've always had a plan A mentality. It's like, this is what I want to do, but I'm going to have things around the plan A, like not plan Bs, but like, you know, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, you know, still keeping the plan A in mind to make sure that that supports the main vision. And so our slide board was like one of those, you know, those subsets. And 6 months before we closed, going back to the slide board, we were listening to our customers go like, I really like this. I really like this. I really like this. And I was like, okay, well, I think we need to answer that. And Johnny was really the prompt going, I think we need to find a way to do something independent of Cult, to like kind of break this four-wall model and be able to scale beyond that. And I was like, yeah, we got to give people goosebumps in a different way. And so we started thinking about this at-home slide board experience based on the data that we had of the 23,000 people that came through our doors, of like what workouts to do and how to be a good add-on experience to what we were doing at Brrrn, or what people were doing elsewhere. Because I think that giving people options is how you win. When you tell them like, no, you can only work out at home on this bike with us, period, the end, kind of feels, again, like you're forcing people to make a decision versus giving them the option to see how they want to show up for themselves with regard to their health. And I'm glad that we started to formulate this. We worked with the company that had produced like one of the biggest at-home fitness concepts that's currently around. And we were ready to carry that out, because when we had no choice to, we were like, okay, at least we have a blueprint. But it was truly that teamwork with Johnny and myself, where Johnny, he moved back to Minnesota with his wife's family because his son was 1, and he was in a small East Village apartment. I don't know how he lived in this like 250 square foot apartment it was just wild. So much cat hair too. I inhaled pounds of cat hair helping him move out. I think I still need to go to a doctor, but he was like, look, he's like, I got the back end. He's like, film these videos, baby. Like, we got to get content. And so put on like my production hat. We like safely got our team to create hundreds of workouts when we had the studio, 3 camera setup, filmed it with incredible people. Mm-hmm. And 3 months later in 2020, we had this at-home fitness experience that eventually caught the attention of a lot of people and revered athletes like Apollo Ono, who became one of our investors. I mean, we would say, it was so crazy, Patrick, we would say in class, bring out your inner Apollo Ono. We would say that hundreds and hundreds of times. And we put that into the universe. And the fact that it actually, like, that person actually reached out to us is like insane. But it goes back to like speaking your intention, like say it, put it out there, and with hard work and with luck, it will come back to you. So luckily we did that, because we would have died as a brand when we were told to close, because we just didn't have the operating capital, living month to month, and having to let go of my team, a small team, and to tell them like, look, when we have the moment to hire you back, we will. But, we did all that we could. And luckily the resiliency that we have as a brand, me thinking back to my late wife saying, this is the proudest thing that I'll never get to see. Like, how do I not have another death in my life?
Yeah.
Which it felt like, the grieving the loss of something that I birthed with another person, navigating that, it was very challenging. But again, going back to community, going back to just reminding yourself of your why, that's what helped me, show up to this new challenge and to make myself and my business better for it.
I think one thing that really made it successful when you guys shifted to the at-home studio version of the board, I love the models that you picked. Huh. They look like real people. And that may seem insignificant, but people are always looking at someone and comparing. We all do it. We all have comparative brains and comparative minds. And these people look like real people. I mean, they're beautiful people. They're not like, a mess. But
that's our next campaign. It's like, we know you're a mess. Here's how to.
Yeah. But I thought it was so smart, and in a way, such a like human thing to do.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's a combination of, again, Johnny, this incredible photographer, Cedric Terrell, who he got us. He was a customer and a good friend of Johnny's, and a celebrity photographer. And we always wanted to say, like, we want real people to see this. Because I think like there's a real and ideal when you're casting yourself as a brand, because I think a lot of brands want people to strive for their idealized self. But I think like you were saying, seeing who you are in the moment in branding is so important, because I don't want people to feel bad about where they're at. I want people to go, oh, this person's like me, enjoying this thing, and they're doing it with a smile on their face and sweat dripping down their face. When we can hold up that mirror to where people currently are, they are more in tune with how to reflect on the message that you're giving them.
Yeah.
So, from that branding perspective, I thought it was really important to show real people. It was really a combination of a lot of people coming together and saying, like, how do we want to show up for ourselves, and show up for other people by casting the right image, that familiar field that we had at the studio. It's like we don't have that in-person experience. So how do we cast that as a brand to show who you are now and encourage you to be the best version of yourself, and whatever that looks like later?
You think you'll ever go back to a studio?
We've been asked that a lot. And for us, we're able to have these in-person experiences, but under other people's roofs. So as we have evolved out of COVID and where at home was the only option, we celebrate the fact that customers have choices now. And if they want to show up to an in-person class, 1, 3, 5 days a week, but then they're working from home, or they're like, you know what, I just want to do something at home, that we're there. We're the choice that they make to move in a way that we know that they're not moving anywhere else, at an affordable price point, and a value that it brings to their body. Though I would love to open up another studio and to kind of get back to where we were, I really think that the next chapter was created to, as a result of the foundation built by the first chapter. If the cold studio was Breaking Bad, what we're doing now is Better Call Saul. Or if you're someone that's lived a little bit more life experience, Cheers and Frasier.
You describe your life as a comedy meets tragedy meets epiphany. What stage are you in now?
That's a good question. I think I'm in a stage now where I'm trying to not have it be one or the other, and more of like a dramedy, because I reflect that life is going to be, you can find humor in the suck, and if I can just balance the two on a daily basis, I'll feel good. The epiphanies come in the tough moments, they come in the happy moments, but I'm trying to manage my expectations with myself by accepting the fact that there's going to be still a lot of hills to climb, but to laugh at all some of the silly things.
So you and your wife Rachel are new parents. You're very.
You talk about the bags under my eyes. Oh my gosh!
And I'm wondering what fatherhood is teaching you at this. Yeah. I know it'll change as he gets older.
Yes, he's almost 1 month old now. So his name is Miles Hudson Martin, and his name is important to the both of us because it reflects the distance that we've traveled to find one another in this way. His middle name reflects the beautiful river that we had to cross every morning, the river that kind of surrounds the city that we were able to make our dreams come true. And I love alliteration too. So that was really big with me. Before I talk about what being a parent means, I want to talk about what being a husband again means. I didn't think that I would find love again. I wasn't in a position to dedicate my life to somebody else, knowing that I just lost the person that defined me. But what's interesting about Rachel is that Rachel was somebody that my late wife, Linmarie, and I were good friends with. Rachel was a rower with my wife at George Mason University, where we all went to college. And Rachel was this like very funny and loyal friend and just beautiful person that was glowing. But she was like the incredible pacifier to anything that got like wild. Like she just, she was always down to do anything, and was such a great friend to my late wife. And when we were at hospice, showed up, she gave me a big bag of Starburst jelly beans that I think I got like 10 cavities from eating the whole bag. But she just got it, right? Like she just showed up and no questions asked. And her, my late wife, I remember I was doing some chores and stuff, and I remember seeing like them outside talking for like quite some time outside, and they had their fair share of, I wouldn't say falling outs, but they had some tough times where they felt like they could have been better friends with each other. And I think they were having some resolution outside when they were talking. But I remember, when we were honoring Linmarie's life, and I was walking out talking to everybody, I just looked at Rachel. She started kind of like tearing up, and then I started for the first time, like cried and held her, and hugged her, and just felt that like resolve and like human connection. And I think that like Linmarie had told Rachel, like, look out for him, like make sure he finds love again, make sure he doesn't just abandon his dreams because of this thing that's happening. And as fate would have it, as Rachel like was reminded that this job that she didn't love anymore, she had to leave, and she wanted to go back to school to be a occupational therapist to really help people versus to be stuck in a dark room editing, Eastbound and Down and SpongeBob SquarePants, all day. To have it, she was prompted to change as well, as was I. And in that moment of us trying to find our footing in our life, we kind of found each other. And the story of Linmarie's life still lives with the both of us. And that was something I was really scared about. If I were to find love, that I had to close that chapter to embrace another. But it's a storyline that runs through the both of our, through our relationship. And we grew as a couple, and, and years later, here's this beautiful boy who is a reminder of all that we've been through, before this moment. So I'm so grateful to have an incredibly supportive partner who can allow me to continue in the story that helped define who I am today and who I'll be as a father. So being a parent, I didn't know what tired was until we brought him home for the first night. I love late nights because that's like the in comedy, like these men and women stay up so early in the morning. That's where all the wild stuff comes. And man, has wild stuff come through my mind these last few weeks. But I was always told by friends of mine who have kids, young kids, now kids that are in high school. They say like the moment you look in your child's eyes, like you'll understand what it means to be a parent. And oh my gosh, like, being able to, I'm getting choked up, being able to like just see somebody, to see this, like the manifestation of like who you are, and who, in the relationship you had with your partner. You've made a human who like just has so much yet to discover in this world. Like, I'm just so like excited for him to see his dreams come true and to impart the wisdom that my parents and my wife's parents gave to us, to have him make decisions about what he wants his story to be, and to really dedicate myself to somebody else beyond Rachel, like to like live for somebody else. And I think that is such an incredible feeling. And to be able to wear this hat and not be called a creep, a daddy hat, is cool too. So
you said earlier when we were talking that when your first wife passed away, that you lost your faith. Have you found your faith again?
Yeah, I'm finding it. It's evolving, right? Like I grew up Catholic, went to church every Sunday, was a lecturer. I grew up in an incredible, faith-based community that like just reminded us about living for a higher purpose, like, and to strive for things bigger than ourselves. I'm definitely a lot more positive about that. I was very nihilistic and very like, how could something bigger than ourselves, call it God or whatever, do this to me? And very like, I was just very resentful. But I've been able to see, going back to the idea of living through something challenging and using that as a catalyst to be better, to do good. I realize that there is a higher purpose. There is a reason for things, or at least I'm open to applying that to the tough things I'm living through. But yeah, I have a newfound faith, and I don't know what to call it yet, but it's definitely something that I want to keep exploring and keep sharing with other people.
Mm. So on this season of the show, I'm talking to people and asking them if they found their voice, or if they're in the process of finding their voice. And so I pose that question to you. Have you found your voice? And if you have, what do you want to say with your pretty large platform?
Well, the one thing I'm very concerned with is making sure as I'm striving to hit those high notes, that my voice doesn't become hoarse, quite literally. But yeah, I think that I'm kind of coming into my own now and realizing that I'm more than just the experiences that I create for other people. I've seen a lot of people define themselves by what they do. And I think when you're coming up, you're just trying to figure out who you are and what difference you can make in your own life and the life of other people. And I would white knuckle that identity so much. I mean, going back to that photo of like, I'm a hot, I want to be a hot person to other people. I want, I got to be, I'm the shirtless person that was the Michael Jordan of nude art modeling from 2009 to 2010. That's who I am. Know me as this. Whereas now, like, I want to be known as a person that loves to create things with people, that loves to make people smile, laugh, really think about themselves. And that voice will be amplified by the quality of the experiences that I help to create for other people. So it is evolving. I would really like to get back into creating things in other industries like entertainment. I want to write screenplays and TV shows again. I want to help small business owners be able to understand the dynamics of like modern content creation tools and other perspectives so that they can navigate through like times that I had been through. I'm very passionate about education and representation in education. I have so many friends that are public school teachers, and it just feels like it's archaic, and they're just like, oh, like these schools are not given the right resources to empower the current student body to like double down on themselves, to like see beyond the next day. There's a lot of things I want to do. And I think with that, like I have to make sure that I have range in my voice to do all those things. So a lot of vocal warm-ups, quite literally every day yeah, exactly. To make sure that happens. So, but I feel like I have a lot more resonance now behind my voice than I did before.
Jimmy, thank you so much for your time today. I so appreciate it. I love your story and what you and Johnny are doing.
Thank you, Patrick. It was a pleasure to be here, and I've listened to many of your episodes, and really, I think the experience that you create for other people by allowing people like myself to share our stories is the good that we need to see in the world. So thank you for making the effort, despite how hot it is outside where you are, to have such a beautiful background behind you and such a beautiful message and mission to want to share with other people. So really, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jimmy. And to those of you who are watching or listening, remember, we all have a voice. Use yours wisely. Bye, everyone. Thank you, Jimmy.